Good morning, students. You are welcome once again to our online classes for this week. This week, chemistry will be taking our last topic for the second semester. But notwithstanding, the end of this lesson, by next week, we will go back to first semester's work because there are still some topics that we still need to review. Today we'll be talking on pollution. First and foremost, what is pollution? Pollution is defined as an excess discharge of any substance into the environment in such a way that it will have adverse effects on the quality of the environment in terms of air present in the environment, the water, and also talking about the resources, other resources present in the environment, and these acts causes damage both to humans, plants, and animals. And these substances released into the environment that affects adversely the quality of the environment, we refer to it as pollutants. We call it pollutants. So pollutants are the substances introduced into the environment which affects usefulness of resources like air, water, and soil. And pollutants can be divided into three based on the three states of matter. It can be solid, that is, pollutants can be in form of solid, liquid, or gas. And the extent of damage that a given pollutant can cause to either man, plants, or animals depends on its nature, the nature of that pollutant, as well as its concentration, that is, its amounts in the environment. Now, biodegradable and non-biodegradable pollutants. When you hear the word biodegradable pollutants, they are pollutants that can be acted upon by microorganisms, which will cause their decomposition. So at the end of it all, they will remain harmless. So they are the pollutants that can be broken down or degraded into simpler, harmless substances in nature due to time. That is, as they continue to present in the environment for longer period of time, they get degraded by the action of living organisms such as bacteria or fungi, and so on and so forth. And examples of those waste are domestic waste, which are garbage, urine as well, then our fecal matter, that is our feces, then sewage, agricultural residues as well, such as crops from farmland, paper, wood, then clothes, cattle dung, animal bones, leather, wool, vegetable stuff, or plants. This is stuff, please, not stuff. And all these pollutants, they are biodegradable. That is, bacteria or fungi can act on them and cause their decomposition. So the second type of pollutant that we'll be considering is non-biodegradable pollutants. Just like the name implies, when you say non-biodegradable, it means organisms cannot act on them to cause their decomposition into harmless substances. So these are pollutants that cannot be broken down. They cannot be broken down into simpler and harmless substances in nature. They cannot be broken down by into harmless substances in nature. So they remain on earth for many years without being degraded. And examples of these non-biodegradable pollutants include, we have the plastics. When we look around, we see various plastics dumped in our environments, and these can stay for longer period of time without being decomposed. Then DDT, which is a form of chemicals, then polythene bags, insecticides, pesticides, mercury, lead, arsenic, and some other heavy metal particles like the aluminum cans. Then as well, synthetic fibers. We have some synthetic fibers which can stick for longer period of time, and hence they constitute pollutants to the environment. Then glass objects as well, iron metals and silver foils, as well as many others examples of non-biodegradable pollutants. That is, all these pollutants can never be acted upon by fungi or bacteria to cause their decomposition into harmless substances. Differences between biodegradable and non-biodegradable pollutants. So for the biodegradable pollutants, they are composed, they decompose by the action of bacteria or fungi and get degraded into harmless substances. But for non-biodegradable pollutants, they can never be decomposed by microbes. Then two, biodegradable pollutants, its degradation process is rapid, is very fast. That is, it takes just few hours or days. While for degradation process for non-biodegradable pollutants is very slow, and that is why you see them existing for years without being decomposed. Then they are not accumulated. For biodegradable pollutants, they are not accumulated but are used up in short time. They are used up in short time by bacteria and some other organisms. While for non-biodegradable pollutants, they got accumulated with time. Then biodegradable pollutants used to produce energy manure. That is, we can use it such as the dungs from animals, feces, and so on and so forth. They can be used in production of manure, compost, as well as biogas. But for non-biodegradable pollutants, can be separated and recycled, but the process is very expensive. All these are pure water nylons, all these plastics, they can be gathered up and recycled, but the process is expensive, it's costly. Then lastly, for biodegradable pollutants, they become part of biogeochemical cycles and give back rapid turnover. So while for non-biodegradable pollutants, most of them never enter into biogeochemical cycles, very slow and toxic. What do we mean by biogeochemical cycles, such as nitrogen cycle, sulfur cycle, and so on and so forth? So most of biodegradable pollutants, they enter into these cycles, and hence they are returned. Most of the elements, or let me say the nutrients in them, are returned back to the atmosphere as gaseous substances. But for non-biodegradable pollutants, they never enter into biogeochemical cycles, and very slow in terms of its decomposition, and they remain, most of them remain toxic. Types of pollution. Pollution can be classified into different types based on the kind of natural resources they affect. Like the one that affects water, we refer to it as water pollution. So water pollution is any physical, biological, or chemical change in water quality that will adversely affect living organisms or make such water unsuitable for use. Various sources of water pollution exist. So, but the sources can be divided into two based on whether we are able to identify the source of that pollution or not. If the source is identifiable, we call it point source pollution. But if the source is unidentifiable or cannot be readily identified, we refer to it as no point source of pollution. So for the first one, point source pollution is defined as any single identifiable source of pollution from which pollutants are discharged. That is, being able to detect the source of the pollutant that cause such water pollution. And the source for point source pollution, the source may be from the industry in form of industrial discharge. It may be from factory in form of factory smokestack or other municipal sewage. While for the second one, the null point source pollution. In this form, the source of pollution cannot be readily identified. That is, sources are scattered or diffuse. We cannot pinpoint that, oh, this is the source of these pollutants. So example of it is talking of the runoff from farmlands, construction sites, that is runoff from construction sites, parking lots, then agricultural logging and animal waste. Once a water get contaminated with this kind of pollutant, it will not be easy for us to identify the source of such particular pollution. So, and that is why we classify it to be null point source of pollution. Sources of water pollution. So the table here is giving us the various sources of water pollution and some things we can say about them. So for the first one, water and sewage company. Some company that deals with water or with some forms of sewage. We can have sewage in large quantity from company or from industries. And undercomings, this can be in form of organic waste and sometimes industrial waste. Then aluminum residues from water treatment also can contaminate water. Then another one is waste, or let me say pollutant from petroleum industry. And this can be in form of oil spills from ships or oil supertanker disaster. That is when we have some of these tanker that do carry fuel. When they engage in accidents, we see some kind of oil spills. This one can be taken by runoff into water body and hence cause such water to be contaminated. Then offshore drilling operations, that is the activities of some petroleum industries like the NNPC. Then another source of water pollution is the acid rain. And acid rain is formed by the combination of SO2 or NO2 with water, which will form acids. Like SO2 with water will give us the sulfonic acid, while NO2 with water can give us two forms of acid, which may either be nitrous or nitric acid. Then another source of water pollution is radioactive materials, which may be present in waste and in some other radioactive isotopes like uranium and thorium during their mining and refining. Then nuclear power plants, some nuclear power plants that we use in generating electricity can discharge some radioactive pollutants which can contaminate water. Then industrial or medical and scientific use. At times we use radioactive rays in sterilizing our equipment, sterilizing surgical equipment, and this one can lead to contamination of water as well. Then we mustn't forget, we in the medical field we use X-ray and some others radioactive rays in the treatment of some diseases like cancers and so on and so forth. So all these predispose water to radioactive waste and hence make such water unconducive for use. Effects of water pollution. So we want to see the effect of water pollution on human, animals, and on the economy. For human health, when we consume water that has been contaminated, this could cause what we know as amoebic dysentery. It could lead to amoebic dysentery, skin cancers, cholera, typhoid fever, damage of nervous system, then genetic mutations or birth defects. As well, it can lead to hepatitis. It can lead to hepatitis and many other diseases like that can result when we drink polluted water. Then its effect on animals. Polluted water is harmful both to aquatic life and wildlife, as it may result to excess growth of algae, which can kill aquatic life because there will be oxygen depletion in that water, and this will lead to the death of the aquatic organisms. Then, apart from that, the growth of this algae could reduce photosynthetic activities of some photoplanktons in water. Then, this, at the end of it all, may disrupt food chain and food web. Then, on the economy, high cost of drinking water purification, because once the water is contaminated, what will be the next action will be how we can purify such water, and that one will take money from us. That is, purification of water requires money. Then sales of aquatic organisms can be affected too. Once those organisms are being affected by pollutants, water pollutants, they can develop diseases, and this will make such organisms unsuitable for sale. Then in places where there are water activities or sports, lot of money is spent to clean up the water from algae blooms and so on and so forth. So all these are the various adverse effects of water pollution on both human, animals, and on the economy. How can we control water pollution? One, we can set up effluent treatment plants to treat waste. Instead of passing them directly into water body, we can just create an effluent treatment plant that will help us to treat such waste. And the waste that can be treated in this case include the sewage. It includes sewage, it includes water waste from industries, and so on and so forth. Then two, agricultural wastewater treatment for farms and erosion control from construction sites could also help to prevent water pollution. That is, if we channel our runoff properly into a particular place that will not make them contaminate water, then we can control such kind of pollution. Then public must also be educated on the need to prevent water pollution and the consequence of water pollution. I want to say that now we still have some villages in which the dweller do defecate in water bodies. So if such people are educated on the need to prevent water pollution, then they can desist from such acts, and hence water pollution can be controlled. Then there must be strict enforcement, there must be strict law as touching water pollution. There must be strict law like the Water Pollution Control Act, which will check the activities of humans with respect to water. Then the last point here, there must be continuous monitoring of water pollution at different places, and many other things can be put in place. We still have a lot of measures, which we will see in the next slide. Then, apart from those points highlighted before, waste food material, paper, decaying vegetables, and plastics should not be thrown into the open or underground drains. Next one, effluents with high organic content and slurries from distilleries and industry should be sent to biogas plants for generation of energy. That is, all this material, all this waste, instead of dumping them, instead of using them in littering our environment, we can just do what? Gather them and take them to a biogas plant where they can be reused, where they can be used to generate energy. Then oil slicks should be skimmed off from the surface with oil separators or suction devices. Once we have oil spill, the necessary action to take is to do what? To skim it off from the surface, so that will not be taken by runoff into the nearby water body. Then sawdust may be spread over such oil slicks to absorb the oil component, and then the material is incinerated. That is, the sawdust, after being used to absorb the oil, is now being incinerated properly. Not just burning it in an open place. We take it to an incinerator and we burn it off. Another types of pollution is air pollution. That is, this is a kind of pollution that affects air in the atmosphere. So this is defined as the undesirable gas, that is unwanted gas, smoke, dust, fume, mist odor, or chemical particles in the atmosphere, which are harmful both to human beings, plants, and animals. That is, all these undesirable gases in form of smoke, dust, fume, mist, odor, or chemical particulates, they are harmful to human, to plants, and also to animals. So when we have a kind of activities like this, or a kind of pollution like this, we call it what? Air pollution. Now, types of air pollutants. Air pollutants are classified into one. We have the primary pollutants. Primary pollutant, which is a pollutant resulting from natural occurrences such as dust storms, volcano, or from human activities such as emission from vehicles, from industrial waste, and some other human activities. The major global 5 primary air pollutants are, we have the carbon oxide, which can be in form of carbon monoxide or carbon 4 oxide. Carbon monoxide or carbon 4 oxide. Then 2, nitrogen oxides. 3, sulfur oxides, that is sulfur 4 oxides. Then 4, lead, and 5, particulate matter. All these are the 5 major primary pollutants in the environment, or let me say in the atmosphere. Now, we want to see them one by one. For the first one, carbon oxide. Like I said earlier, this can be either carbon monoxide or carbon 4 oxide. So carbon monoxide is a product from incomplete combustion of carbon material, whereas carbon 4 oxide is a product of complete oxidation. For incomplete oxidation of carbon substances, or let me just say petrochemicals in some automobile engines, will lead to the liberation of carbon monoxide, while its complete combustion will form carbon 4 oxide. Let's see sources of carbon monoxide. We can have carbon monoxide from automobile exhaust, from cigarettes, from burning coal, natural gas or biogas, from atmospheric oxidation of methane gas, and other hydrocarbons. All these are the various sources of carbon monoxide. Now, what are the effects of carbon monoxide? 1, it can cause sickness such as headaches, dizziness, and drowsiness. That is why it is not advisable for pregnant women to cook food using a set fire, a kind of fire set using a wood, because of the accumulation of CO in the blood system. So it could result to sickness like headache, dizziness, and drowsiness. Then it combines with iron in the hemoglobin by displacing oxygen, resulting in a lower amount of oxygen reaching the heart, which can lead to heart failure in sensitive people. So it could lead to a serious heart attack. It could lead to serious heart problem. And I don't know if you have heard about hemoglobin. That is hemoglobin attached with oxygen. That oxygen will now be replaced with what? With carbon monoxide. And hence, instead of the blood to be carrying oxygen around the body, the blood will now be carrying carbon monoxide, which is very dangerous to human health. Then it also interferes with oxygen carrying proteins in muscles. It forms carboxyhemoglobin instead of oxyhemoglobin, just like I've discussed. It forms carboxyhemoglobin at the expense of oxyhemoglobin, and this results in asphyxiation in tissues as a result of insufficient supply of oxygen to such tissues. Then high dosage of CO can cause permanent brain damage. If human system accumulates CO in large quantity for longer period of time, it can result to permanent brain damage and even death of such individual. Then initial symptoms before it results to permanent brain damage can include dizziness, headache, nausea, and faintness. So it is advisable not to play with this kind of what? Gas, carbon monoxide. Then another effect is that high dosage for long time could also result to cardiovascular problems, that is, diseases of the heart, a loss in ability to learn and do complicated tasks, that is, that person may lose part of its memory gradually, then reduces awareness, decreases manual dexterity, and disturb sleep activity. This is disturb. Please, the normal spelling is D-I. This is D-I-S-T-U-R-B, not B-E. So it can disturb sleeping activity of such an individual. Now, measures to reduce CO. What can we do to reduce carbon monoxide in the atmosphere? One, we must increase the working efficiencies of automobile engines. Our automobile engines must be worked upon so that at least they give us about 80 to 90% efficiency, which could aid the complete combustions of carbon. Then, removing inefficient and grossly polluting vehicles. Once our vehicles start to give fumes, thick fumes, we must do what? Put a stop to the use of such car. Then provision of facilities that can burn fossil fuels. There must be facilities on ground that can burn fossil fuels instead of our people burning them in an open places. Then prohibition of open burning trash and garbage. Just like I have said, there must be a law on ground that will prohibit the burning of fuels, fossil fuels, burning of garbage, burning of trash on an open environment. Now, another primary pollutants as touching air pollution is sulfur dioxide or sulfur oxide. So these account for about 18% of all air pollution. What are the sources of SO2? It includes chemical industries. We have some chemicals that deals with the use of sulfur. So at the end of it all, like in the production of H2SO4, we use sulfur and oxygen, which will form the oxides of the sulfur. So there can be an escape of gas from such industry, and hence this will cause air pollution. Then metals melting, then pulp and paper mills, oil refineries, and so on and so forth. All these are the sources of sulfur oxide as pollutants. Now let's see effects of SO2. Effect of sulfur dioxide. 1. It reacts with moisture in eyes, lungs, and mucous membrane to form strong irritating acid. In this case, we will now be having itching in our eyes. Then 2, it can trigger allergic reaction and asthma. It can trigger allergic reaction, some kind of ailment reaction in the body, and also it can trigger asthma. So asthmatic patients should not play with this kind of pollutants. Then in the presence of moisture, SO2 is converted into sulfuric acid as well as sulfonic acid in acid rain. So, or in dry condition into sulfate particulates in the atmosphere. These form aerosols that could have adverse effects on health. All these things, talking about the sulfuric acid, talking about the sulfates particulates in the air, they result to ill health. That is, they form aerosols that could affect adversely the health of human. Then they could also result in acidic deposition, that is acid rain. Then 4, sulfate particles in the stratosphere, that is in the atmosphere from SO2, provide surfaces on which ozone destroying reactions occur. So SO2 could lead to ozone layer depletion. Then they also exert anti-warming influence in global climate change. So all these and many more are the effects of SO2. So the third pollutants, primary pollutants as regards to air pollution, is nitrogen dioxide, that is NO2. And this accounts for about 6% of pollution and also results in the formation of acid rain. I've said it earlier on. NO2 can react with water in the atmosphere to give us nitrous acid or nitric acid. So sources of NO2 include, we can get that from motor vehicle exhaust, from gasoline volcanoes, and from lightning, and so on and so forth. Now the next pollutant we'll be considering is lead. Lead is toxic to the nervous system. I don't know if you have heard about lead poisoning. So lead is very toxic to human. So it is released to the atmosphere by the combustion of alkyl lead additives in motor fuels. Don't forget we use lead compound as an anti-knocking in some engine. And this, when got burns, it can be released to the what? Atmosphere. Its vapor can be released to the atmosphere and gets harmful to human, plants, and animals. The mining and smelting of lead oils also contribute to pollution. Then hematological and neurological effects may occur in children owing to exposures to lead. It could lead to some adverse effects as touching human health. Now, another one is the particulate matter apart from lead. And this is defined as single particles or aggregate of particles with diameters greater than 2 × 10⁻⁻10 meter present in the atmosphere. All these small particles, if we have been to a quarry area where they deal with rocks and they turn it to sand, you see some kind of particles present in the atmosphere that could lead to serious problems. And if we are the type that have been to the northern part, whenever they have a wild wind, you know what happens. Most of them got blind as a result of all these particles entering into their eyes. So some are natural, e.g. we have the rain, the wind-blown soil, snow, fog, hail, and mist, while some are from human process like the smoke, soot, fumes, cement dust, asbestos dust, coal dust, etc. Then smoke and soot result from incomplete combustion of coal. When we have incomplete combustion of coal, we can have smoke being given out, as well as soot, thick smoke. Then petrol and diesel fuels in furnaces could also bring smoke and soot. Domestic heating system, like when we are setting fire using wood, it could bring smoke. As well, the use of rubber in making a fire, a local fire, could result in the formation of soot. Also, soot and smoke could result from vehicle engines. That is, an engine that is very low in efficiency could bring more smoke and soot. Aerosols are mixtures of minute solid or liquid particles suspended in air that form haze or spoil visibility. When we have aerosols, it will be difficult to see through, as it will spoil vision. Now, effects of particulate matter. 1, it causes respiratory problems. It could result to respiratory problems. It may also result into eye problem when escape into the eyes. I've said it earlier. Most of the blind people in the north, the blindness is as a result of particulate matter entering into their eyes. Now, secondary pollutant. Don't forget all those ones, they are primary pollutant. Let's now see secondary pollutants. Secondary pollutants, these are formed when primary pollutants react with each other or with other molecules in the air, such as molecular oxygen, water, and hydrocarbons. When we have the primary pollutants reacting with each other or with other substances in the atmosphere, it forms the secondary pollutant. They are not emitted directly from a source. That is, we don't have a source for all these pollutants, as they are only being formed in the atmosphere as a result of reaction of two primary pollutants or reaction of primary pollutants with other substances. Examples are ozone, sulfuric acid, nitric acid, which are components of acid rain, then carbonic acid, peroxyacid nitrate, known as PANS, and so on and so forth. So all these are regarded as secondary pollutants. Effects of air pollution. Effects of air pollution. So one, it affects human health, particularly respiratory and cardiovascular systems. It can damage plants and buildings. Smoke and haze could also reduce visibility. It could lead to ozone layer depletion and global warming. That is talking about the presence of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere and some other surface particulates. Then it could also lead to acid rain. Acid rain. When CO2, for instance, or let me say NO2 and SO2 mix with rainwater in the atmosphere, they could form either the sulfonic acid, nitrous acid, or the nitric acid, which we know as the acid rain. How can we control air pollution? One, the use of better design equipment and smokeless fuels. Heart in industries and heart home. When we continue to use equipment that is of better efficiency, then it will be easy for us to control air pollution resulting from something like CO and CO2, as well as SO2. Then automobiles should be properly maintained and adhere to recent emission control standards. Any automobiles engines or any sophisticated engines that is releasing soot to the atmosphere should be put to a halt. That is, should be stopped. Such engines should be, we should stop the use of such engine. Then more trees should be planted along roadside and houses. At least that will serve as windbreakers, and that one will prevent air pollution resulting from dust. Then renewable energy sources such as wind, solar energy, ocean currents should replace the use of chemicals, the use of petrols and other organic fuels. Instead of using those ones in generating energy, we can defer to the use of wind, the use of solar energy, ocean current, and so on and so forth. Then tall chimneys should be installed for vertical dispersion of pollutants. That is, there must be a very long pipes used in by our industries to exhaust what? To exhaust some harmful air pollutants into the atmosphere, instead of releasing them anyhow into the environment in such a way that can cause harms to man, plants, and animals. Then lastly, the commonly used equipment or process of controlling dust in the industries. You can control dust in the industry by using mechanical dust collectors, which is in the form of dust cyclones. Then we can use electrostatic precipitators, both dry and wet system. We can use particulate scrubbers to remove some dust particles on fixtures or on some parts of the machines and the wall of the industries. Then we can use water sprayer at dust generation points, at least to precipitate those dust. Then proper ventilation system should be put in place. The use of monitoring devices to know the concentration of dust is also very, very important. Then controlling toxic or fuel gases. How can we control some gases that could constitute air pollution? One, process of desulfurization, that is to remove sulfur content from petrol.